You must not allow the world, people, society, social media pressure you into not having and holding the line and having standards. And I want to discuss this today in detail because this is running rampant in the world right now. It's causing a lot of destruction socially, right? It's infiltrated business, relationships, and everything. It's this poison that's slowly crept in and just become this mind virus that's destroying people. And I understand that it's deeply rooted. A lot of people don't see it, and it can seem innocent at first. And this standards thing starts early on, right? I made a reference in a previous video where I discussed some of the silly things that we would do to try to fit in, right? Now, I'm prefacing my talk with this because you'll see later how it ties in. I remember being in middle school, right? This is like late 90s. And there was little trends, right? Even though I was an athlete and I always had great social status in the school, high school, college, right? Blah, 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 popular, all that crap. Even I fell into the trap of still wanting to fit in or fit in at the highest level. So I remember in middle school, for a while, it was cool to get just like, a plain colored shirt like this, but the Tommy Hilfiger shirts with the little flags on them, right? I didn't know anything about them, but all the cool kids would wear them. So I'm over there because, we didn't have the money. I'm at the Burlington Coat Factory or all these little thrift stores looking to see if I can find a discounted shirt for because those regular were what, 20, 30, 40 bucks, I can't remember. And I could get them off the side rack on sale for like $3 or $5 or whatever it was. It was certain pens, like ink pens that we used in school that, the cool kids would use, right? And I would try to get that. So back then, I didn't always do this, but I did it for a while. And luckily I caught on to it pretty early on, even in my youthful days, right? To not fall into those traps. Now, why am I bringing that up? Okay. That's middle school, childhood, right? Elementary school, middle school, going into high school and everything else. Now, that's a seed that's planted. Why? If you never remedy that, you never became aware of it, and you never fixed it, what happens in adulthood? Well, look at this now. People flood online and on social media for advice and help, either listening to people or they pose a question and get feedback from people. So if I have a standard in my business, if I have a standard in relationships, now it's a problem. A big point of contention right now is we can say in business, charging a particular fee or commission and holding to it gets a lot of backlash. I've had a lot of trolls come online and customers come online and kind of talk trash and challenge that, trying to shame me by saying other people or a lot of people, oh, that's not fair and you should do this, right? So they would want me to, again, bend at the knee and give in for social acceptance, which goes back to the elementary school thing. You're doing that not because you want to, but to fit in for social acceptance, right? How about in relationships? A lot of men especially, and this goes both ways, but especially men, want to hold the line and say, hey, I don't want you to go out with your friends and get drunk. But what happens? They get shamed into not having that standard. Internally, they want to have that standard with their woman, their significant other in their relationship, but they won't say it or they won't hold to it, and they'll crack and break to the outside pressure saying, shame, shame, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. Why? Social acceptance. You see? So I'm building the case here, but this has become a poison that has crept into everything. I just gave you two examples, business and then relationships. But this is everywhere. Same thing with standards for friends. But most importantly, this is so key because if you are unwilling externally to have these standards and hold them, I know for certain when it comes to yourself, you're not doing it, because we first must master and conquer ourselves before we can conquer the world outside, which is why all the ancient texts that we read and all, the old wisdom and people and individuals and characters and leaders, thought leaders, whatever you want to call them, that we study and still quote to this day, talked about that journey of personal evolution and self-mastery first and foremost and above everything else, because everything started and ended with that. So I'm bringing this up because this is extremely important. If you yourself can't conquer yourself, can't hold a standard like, hey, I wake up every day at 6 and I go to bed at 10. If you can't hold that standard, how could you in a business or in a relationship hold the standard? Your word has no weight, no meaning, no umph, no significance behind it. Right? We're being incongruent and we're being hypocrites. It's no different than getting mad at a customer or being upset that they won't pay you a premium price for your commission or for your product or your service, yet in your own personal life, you're a cheapskate. That doesn't make any sense. If you're pinching pennies and you're unwilling to yourself invest that money, how could you look a customer in the face? So on the business side, this is why myself and my team, we've always charged a premium commission. On the coaching and training side, I know I'm a pricier option for a lot of people when it comes to sales, business stuff, real estate, my products. I understand that, but hey, on the flip side, I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into myself, and I don't hesitate to pay a premium for something, a little extra for a better service, or pay top dollar for the brand or whatever it is, right? That experience, whatever I'm paying, I don't hesitate. So now I'm not going to hesitate to ask somebody and hold them to it. Now, if they don't want to or they don't desire to do that, that's fine. That's not my customer then. But I'm going to hold that standard. Same thing with how I conduct myself with buyers and sellers in real estate, my agents and their code of ethics and their conduct. All that stuff is held to a high standard. And we will tell them, no, we're not a good fit for each other, or we're going to walk away. You look at the relationship side, right? I just got out of a relationship not too long ago. My standards for relationships are sky high. I've had 2 very long relationships in my life. And now other people had their opinions. I don't care, because my relationships overall were very good and they lasted a long time. The last one was almost a decade. And look at the current state of the world right now. People can't even find anybody, let alone stay together for any significant amount of time. Divorce rates are through the roof, right? But a lot of this stems back to what I said. People are doing things for social acceptance, which then bleeds into this category that we're discussing today, which is standards. I know people who have compromised their businesses and relationships for that social acceptance. So much so that they'll compromise their satisfaction and what they want for that social acceptance. They lower or drop their standard, right? That rule, guideline, whatever word, right, fancies you. And then they're not happy, relationship ends, business starts, fumbling and doing poorly and underperforming, and then fails or goes into bankruptcy or whatever it is, because they didn't hold the standard. And I'm having this discussion with people around me all the time, because this is something that isn't taught necessarily on paper. This is a personal evolution. This is a thought process. This is an emotional maturity for somebody. And this is an understanding, using and utilizing logic and reason at the highest levels for personal evolution, right? In every category of life. Because this, again, goes into every category: finances, relationships, business, career, right? Social life. I have a standard as an example when I go out and socialize. It doesn't have to be under the guise of, well, we need to party or club and drink and alcohol and all that. There's a lot of people who can't even control themselves that, again, don't want to drink or partake in party drugs and all that, but because they go out, what? Social acceptance. People shame them. They fall into that trap. I can go in those, I'm not going to go in those environments, period. But even if I am, I can hold fast. You can talk all the trash that you want. Oh, you're boring, this and that. I don't care. I'll laugh in your face. I'm going to hold that line, which is why I live the way that I live, can get the results that I get, right? So on and so forth. I'm preaching to the choir here. If you guys are listening to this, you get it, right? Even if you're not on that level yet, you're desiring it and you're on it, which is why you watch this content and you follow me. But do not lower that standard for yourself. Now, we do have to also acknowledge that some people can be delusional, right? Like, the brand new business that has no, we can say, experience, isn't a luxury product, but wants to charge like $20,000 per item, but their item is worth $5. Okay, but that's an extreme example of just absolute delusion. Okay, because people will bring that up. Whoa. Okay, but that's like a sliver of a percentage in its own category, right? But I'm speaking generally here, and because that's another video that I'm going to talk about. You can't even speak generally anymore. Everything is nuanced. Nothing is black and white, and you can't critique anybody. It's just getting out of control, but I'll save that for another video. But we have to be able to establish the ground rules here and something for us to create the dialogue from, and it's that. You got to hold that standard, right? So if you follow the individual, like let's say me, I know for an example, from a health and physique standpoint, my standard is high. I have, a six-pack year-round. I'm 40 years old now, so I'm over 40 now, right? I get good sleep. I hold myself to that standard, so my results are better. I know that I perform athletically better than the average person my age, way better, right? That same standard I held from when I was younger. I know I look for sure better than most people my age, right? I know my ability to perform physically, right? All of these things, but look at the standard. I don't eat junk food. I cook 99% of my food. I'm anal, about the ingredients that I look at. I get everything fresh. I knew that I had to make money and be successful to be able to enjoy this at the highest levels. I already have thoughts and plans in the future of the next property I get is probably going to be 1.5 acres, 2 acres. I'm going to start growing some of my own food. If I don't start, raising the animals myself, I'm going to find a local farm to get, my meats and my cuts and my eggs so I can get back to primitive in regards to food and quality of it. But that's a standard for me. So all my life is shaping around those things. Same thing with prioritizing working out and walking. I do 15,000 steps a day. Whether I walk outside, I'm on my walking pad while I'm on the computer, I have a stand-up desk. Those are all manifestations and examples and real life things that are in direct correlation to the standard that I hold. Those things are there because of the standard, and I will not compromise. I will go to bed on time. I will wake up on time. Right now, I'm not perfect, but I'm doing that the lion's share most of the time, which is why I'm getting the results. But what does that go back to? Standard that's not compromised. Beautiful woman comes over. If I go to bed at 10, guess what? If it's 10 p.m., whether we did our business or not, sorry, lady, you're going home. And to this day, I still have women messaging me all the time. You're the only one that's kicked me out and da-da-da. Because apparently people don't have fucking standards. Right? But that's what tests you. Right? Let's give you that example because that's very relatable to men. You have that girl that you've been pursuing and pining for, and she's over at your place. You got to get to bed at 10 though. If there's a promise of some extracurricular activities and you haven't gotten it done by 10, what are you going to do? You know damn well, because I've done it in the past when I was super young, you compromise the standard for the emotion, the gratification, right? The dopamine hit, whatever is popular nowadays that people are saying. Instead of holding the standard and saying, you know what? No. And how powerful is this? To this day, y'all. I still have women who I've messed with in the past, some I did, some I didn't, who are married now with children who still will send me a message and say, you're the only man who told me no, or who denied me, or who only did it once, or who would kick me out at this time, right? I've lost count. Which is kind of sad because they're married and have kids that shouldn't message me in the first place, but you get what I'm saying here. That's how powerful that is, and that's how rare a quality like this is. And not only do people look up to it, it puts you in a different category. It elevates you. That's the power of the standard when it comes to how you live your life. Now, I mentioned earlier, again, we're nuanced here, right? In regards to some of the things, we're not going to point to the extremes like the delusional examples, right? It'd be like me coming out and telling, well, you have to treat me like royalty. I'm a king. Okay, that would be delusion, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about the standard, right? Generally speaking, everybody knows what I'm talking about. I just have to address that because that's usually the argument that people make, these extremes, or, oh, you can't say that. So I just gave you an example. Understand that and look at your life and say, okay, in my business, in my relationships, in my social life, in my finances, where am I at with that? Because if you deduce and you look back at a lot of the older content that I posted that now is deleted, a lot of it from YouTube, the underlying tone and one of the foundational datums was that. I was just showing to the world, hey, this is my standard and this is what I do. This is why a lot of people come out and say, oh, that's BS and this and that. That's fine. You don't have to believe it, but that's the standard that's being held. And I gave you the physical one, right? From working out to the eating to then the timelines in my career and my discipline, right? That's what you need to have. Now, where you fall short is because the bar is too low. And you need to look, like if I look at, the physical component again, the bar that I hold myself to is up here and most people is here. This is why physically, again, I'm not special. I wasn't this genetic god when it came to looks and all that. But I look pretty good and I keep myself in very good shape because of the standard that I hold myself to, which is why I know physically I'm in that top percentile worldwide for sure. But it's the standard. If everyone else did what I did, ate like I ate, rested, worked out like I worked out, right? Got the steps in and prioritized movement and stretching and all that stuff. Well, most people, again, there'll be some outliers who maybe just physically couldn't do it, right? But that's a small percentage. The lion's share of people would look pretty damn good, have good energy, get good sleep, so on and so forth. But a lot of people don't hold themselves to that standard. When I'm moving, they're sitting still. When I'm eating healthy, they're going for convenience. When I'm cooking, they're eating out. When I'm abstaining from drinking and drugs and all that nonsense, they're doing it. I don't care what people say because I've been attacked in all these categories. whether it's relationships, business, finances. I get attacked. I used to, right? Before I got, canceled and shunned off the internet, but it was rampant. I didn't care though. I'm still going to hold the standard, regardless of what people say. That's the standard that I've set for me in my life. I'm not hurting anybody, but that's the one that I live by. If people don't agree with it, that's fine. That's their right. You cannot agree with anything about me. My earrings, my tattoos, how I express myself. Great, good for you. I don't give a shit though. I don't care. I'm still gonna go this way and live my life. You can holler and scream and do what you want. The problem with that now is people have taken that to an extreme, and many of you don't put your foot down with your standards. Not only do you allow people to shame you, but now it's gotten so out of control because people are so weak and soft, they get away with mass reporting accounts, canceling people like it happened to me. But we're allowing that bully type behavior because many people don't put their foot down. Now, people aren't gonna actually do something to me, but they have these sneaky online things where they mass report you and do all these things. Now, again, if everybody held strong, that stuff wouldn't work because everybody would speak up, everybody would hold the line, and it wouldn't be a problem. But a lot of people are cowering and they're scared right now, and that's a problem. That's that same behavior that's exhibited from somebody who doesn't hold the line and hold the standard. You gotta do it. In the long run, that wins. Temporarily, it sucks. People might be mad. You might suffer socially a little bit because people try to shame you or whatever. It doesn't matter, and pay them no mind. In the end, you win. They don't. In the end, you win. They don't. And you have to keep that in mind. This is why it's so important to hold the line and not allow anybody to shame you for your standards and try to manipulate you and whatever the popular terms are nowadays, right? Gaslight, I think, is a word that I hear. Don't even really know what the fuck that means, but you know what I'm saying. People will try to shame you, manipulate you, treat you like origami, right? And they think that they have more authority about how you should live your life than you have of your own, which makes absolutely zero sense. 0 cents. So take a look at some of these categories that I've brought up and ask yourself, where are you at, right? Take stock of where you're at and say, okay, what do I need to improve? Where do I need to put my foot down? And that might require making a phone call right now. That might require you sitting down your significant other and saying, hey, XYZ has been happening, but look, I've always felt uncomfortable about ABC, and I want that to change. And you need to be okay. Because if the standard means you have to change something in your business, the relationship has to shift or potentially end, well, then something has to be done because that's either going to happen the way it's supposed to happen, or again, we compromise the standard, we live less, and it has huge negative consequences and repercussions later down the line that could be catastrophic and devastating versus holding the standard, communicating it and establishing it and moving forward based on that. Because every moment you move forward compromising the standard and how you really want to be and view this thing, whether again it's your business, relationships, social, friends, anything, all you're doing is you've built a foundation on something that's a lie, that's wrong, that's erroneous, that's quicksand. And as time moves forward, the consequences are going to get worse. The repercussions are going to get worse, and the damage is going to be greater because you're moving forward on something that shouldn't even be there. It's a false bottom. It's fake. It's smoke. It's smoke and mirrors. So you're going to have to go through that temporary discomfort of establishing the standard again or setting it and then moving forward cleanly. This is why my timeline has been clean as a creator. I've been consistent. You haven't seen me drop off or have mental issues or all the other stuff that you see people having because, again, everything I'm building is clean. And if I have to start over on something, I will. But it's a clean foundation. It's not corrupted. It's not poisoned. I didn't compromise myself. A lot of the changes that I made, moving companies and making a new channel, has been because I don't compromise. People have done me wrong. Organizations have done me wrong, but I haven't compromised. That's okay. And I'm okay dealing with all the consequences and repercussions, especially the temporary ones, of being honest and forthcoming and transparent and doing things correct. I could be making more money right now and in a completely different position if I compromised, if I gave in to all the stuff that I'm talking about here. I'd still have my, again, 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. I had that back in 2019 and 20. Imagine where I'd be now. I had 40, 50,000 followers on Instagram back then, 5-6 years ago, before all this stuff happened. Imagine if I compromised myself, sold out, what would I be doing now? I'd probably be making millions and doing all this other stuff, but why? I wouldn't sleep at night. I would be on here as a liar making these videos and doing these things. It's just a reality. So again, If I rewound time, I would do the same thing again. I wouldn't change it. I might make tweaks to certain things because we can always get better. But overall, the honesty, the transparency, and all that is always going to be front and center because that's the way, again, that you win long term. And I have a clean soul, a clean conscience. I'm living happy, I'm fulfilled, and I'm doing what I want to do, regardless of how the outside responds. I don't care about that. I'm always checking in with where am I at and where am I going. And if I'm happy and satisfied with that, that's what matters. Do not compromise and break your standards because the only person who's going to suffer at the end is you.